So thank you, everyone, for staying. It's been a long day with a lot of research-intensive scientific information, so I hope you're hanging in there. I'm actually really used to presenting scientific research, so this is something different for me to present more of a personal story. But I hope it'll be lighter for you and help your brains to relax a little bit after the intense day. So, see if I can do this. Yeah. So I'm going to start by introducing you to Fiona Kelly. She's a daughter, a sister, a mother. She's a hardworking public health nurse, stepmother of two as well. Hardworking public health nurse for the Haliburton-Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit in Ontario. She's an active community member and social advocate, and she will have had relapsing remitting MS for 29 years this June. Fiona is my mom. And today I'm going to share, like was introduced, a little bit of my story with you about what it's been like to be the daughter of an MS patient and how that has impacted my decision to pursue MS research for my career. This is a picture of my mom, more recent. My mom was diagnosed 3 years before I was born, so I've never known a world without MS. I don't remember the first time that I understood that my mom had MS, and I don't remember when I began to recognize the signs of a relapse. I think as a child I was relatively naive about my mom's disease, and I'm sure that she intentionally tried to hide some of that from me. But as I grew older, I began to understand the reality that my mom had MS, whatever that was. In elementary school, I remember enthusiastically participating in the MS Readathon to raise money for the MS Society of Canada. I also remember feeling slightly slighted or upset when my friends would decide that they didn't like reading, so they weren't going to participate. I always loved school and reading, and I think that Danish study that Catherine La Rochelle told you about is true. I would advocate for that, but so I would have participated regardless of the cause, but it hurt when my friends decided not to participate because I knew my mom had MS, whatever it was, and many of them knew as well. But life with MS was complicated. It often seemed irrelevant and invisible to many. Sure, we had the handicap parking permit, which allowed us to park close to the mall entrance. I feel like my microphone is sliding down, but and so my friends loved shopping with me. And my mom did walk more slowly than most, and often when we were out together, she would call to me to slow down because I had forgotten that she couldn't walk as fast as I was going. There were days when Mom would come home from work and she would tell me that she was completely exhausted and she had to rest the rest of the evening, or that her legs were spasming uncontrollably. She couldn't supervise my school trips to places like the zoo because of the extensive walking that was required. But this was our normal, and we knew how to navigate these challenges. This was what life was for us, until the next relapse. My mom had tried all the available disease-modifying therapies during my childhood, and she didn't respond well to any of them. And being a single mom, she had to, if the complications or the side effects were too severe, she had to just withdraw from the treatment, and because she couldn't let it affect her work. So for many years, she remained an untreated patient, which was really unfortunate for her because of the active nature of her disease. About once a year, my mom would experience a relapse. She would say she could often feel them coming on, and I've heard this from other patients that they say this as well. So she would book an appointment with her family doctor. We're from a small town, so her family doctor managed her disease. And he would prescribe another round of corticosteroids. But she hated those. From the burning sensation that they produced when they were pumped through her veins over hours at our local small town hospital, to the withdrawal that she would experience once they stopped. She would say that the steroids made her feel worse than the relapse itself. And many times, when she would have a relapse, she was forced to stay home from work. It was common for her to use her wheelchair or cane during these times. But the thing was, when I was a child, she always recovered. And she rarely complained. So, while I always had this underlying fear of the next relapse, I didn't quite understand the nature of my mom's disease or the potential of future progression. It wasn't until high school that I began to recognize the severity of my mom's condition. She had stopped recovering as well as she used to post-relapse. Her balance was notably more wonky, as she would say, and her walking was slower. One season in particular stands out in my memory today when my mom had a massive relapse and she could barely walk. Her doctor prescribed a long bout of corticosteroids to treat the relapse. And it was winter and there was a bunch of infections going around. So after this bout of steroids, Mom ended up falling sick. At first, we thought, well, it's a simple cold, she'll recover from this. But instead of recovering, she began to get worse. She was soon bedridden and put on a high dose of antibiotics. I remember this because my brother, who was in medical school at McGill at the time, called home and told me that because of the steroids used to treat Mom's relapse, her immune system was compromised, and this was the reason that she couldn't recover from a simple infection. He warned me of the potential ramifications of the infection spreading to other parts of Mom's body, particularly her heart. And that's when I realized that the option that my mom had to the options she had to fight her disease weren't enough, and they were too risky. Steroids were not good enough. And so I knew that more needed to be done to help people like my mom. I decided after graduating from high school to attend McGill to study biomedical sciences. At this point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to pursue a career involved in alleviating suffering, and also I knew I loved science, so I thought that would be a good place to start. As an anatomy and cell biology major at McGill, I was exposed to basic and translational research for the first time in my life at this wonderful place, the Neuro. This led me to having no idea, first of all, what research was like, because as I said, I was from a small town. I thought I might as well try studying something that I care about, so I thought of looking for labs involved in MS research, and that's where I came across the labs of Dr. Alison Fournier and Amit Barower at the Neuro. And this is where I worked on various projects involved in neuroinflammation and neuro repair. And here I developed a fascination between the complex interplay between the immune system and the nervous system in both health and disease. And I fell in love with research and spent most of my free time in between classes during the summer and late into the evenings in the lab. It was also here that I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in MS research. So that led me to the lab of Dr. Alexander Pratt at the CRCHUM. Although it's risky to study in French because I'm clearly an Anglophone, I decided, because of Dr. Pratt's remarkable work, that I would jump right in and pursue graduate research in his lab. In our lab, we study how pathogenic subsets of immune cells cross what is called the blood-brain barrier, and how they enter into the brain and spinal cord, and this leads to MS lesion formation. As we know through the efficacy of the many disease-modifying therapies that have been presented today, that when you target the immune system, it's effective at both preventing relapses, but also delaying and preventing progression. And new data from the ocrelizumab trials suggests that it also could be effective at treating progression when we target specific subsets. The problem, however, is that many of our current therapies target broad compartments of the immune system, and so they therefore prevent the entry of both good and bad immune cells. And what's becoming clear through the research is that there are positive roles of immune cells in the brain. My slides are automatically turning, I'm sorry. So my research project is specifically looking at how can we identify these pathogenic subsets of immune cells and the cell adhesion molecules that are on them, and specifically block those immune cells without blocking the potentially beneficial cells that might actually be involved in promoting repair following an MS attack. So going to the next slide, this is my lab. Life as a graduate student is extremely challenging at times, and I'm sure everyone in this picture would tell you that. There are days when I work 18 to 20 hours, months when I need to be in the lab every single day. There are tedious moments when I must troubleshoot experimental techniques or new equipment, which is not my favorite aspect of research. And there are discouraging times when after weeks or months of planning and executing experiments, the results that I get back are negative or inconclusive. But there are also moments that are extremely rewarding, like when I get positive results that have the potential to impact MS patients around the world one day, or when I finally have a breakthrough with what I've been working towards for months or years even. And it's these days and moments that I continue to work for, and you, the patients, your loved ones, and your caregivers, that keep me motivated. And my mom, of course. So to this end, I want to share, or to end this, I want to share a reflection to encourage us all in our fight against MS, having just told you how discouraging it can be on both sides as a daughter of a patient and also a researcher. I took this picture while driving through the desert in Israel this past fall. My coworkers and I had spent the week at an international neuroimmunology conference, and after working all week and learning and studying, we decided to take one day of vacation to explore. And on this day, we were on our way to the Dead Sea. I remember we were laughing, we had the music turned up really loud, singing along, when all of a sudden, our front tire burst. In the middle of the desert, on a boiling hot day, peak of the day, in fact, our heart sank. We knew that there must be a spare tire. We didn't check, but we assumed, because there always is in a rental car. But, like I said, we were in the middle of the desert, and we also had limited water. I think we only had like 4 half-filled bottles left. We didn't expect this to happen, and we were somewhat fearful of how we would address our situation and move forward. Amazingly, the highway patrol came and helped us. I still to this day don't know how that ended up happening, but our new tire was much smaller than the others, and it required us to drive much more slowly down the winding highways. We got honked at many times. People were not happy with us. You could say, though, that we wobbled the rest of our journey that day, to the Dead Sea, back to the car rental place 3 hours away in Tel Aviv, and then back to our hotel in Jerusalem at the end of the night. Let me tell you, it was extremely tempting to grow weary and to start blaming one another, particularly the driver. He was definitely driving way too fast, and to let anger and frustration fester. But I remember realizing that I had a choice that day. I could choose to look at the circumstances all around me and allow the most natural emotions to dictate my outlook, or I could choose hope. And when I see this picture, that's the mindset that I think of. With the sun before us, lighting our way home, we can always choose hope. So one of the lessons that I've learned as the daughter of an MS patient and as a researcher is that try as I might, I cannot control all the circumstances that will present themselves. I cannot always avoid suffering or disappointment. But I can choose to hope and believe for the best, despite what I see all around me, and continue to work towards that. Like the woman who, despite a debilitating and unpredictable illness, raised 3 children on her own, continued to serve her community, successfully climbed her career ladder, gaining promotion after promotion, and then went on to care for her ailing mum until she passed away from Alzheimer's. Like my mum, Fiona Kelly, I can be a woman marked by hope. And that can be true for all of us. We can all decidedly choose not to look solely to what we can see, not to our burst tire, not to our new diagnosis or the fear of the future, not to the days when after your best efforts you get to 3 a.m. and you find out that the experiment did not work or provide the results that you expected, and not to the amount of time that it takes to understand the progressive stage of this terrible disease. Instead, we can be a community rooted in hope. So to end, I'm so amazed by the progress that the research community has made in my lifetime to understand MS and to offer patients therapies. And I do believe that even though it takes years and tireless work and a lot of support, there will be a day when both relapsing remitting MS and progressive MS no longer exist. So we press on, driving as fast as our wounded car will take us. The sun is just over the hill. Let's go there together. Thank you.